Hello, my name's Professor Jim McLaughlin. I'm Head of School of Engineering at the University of Ulster at Jordanstown. Today I want to talk to you about our research in COVID-19 or around COVID-19 and maybe what the next generation world is going to be like. Bearing in mind the consequences of COVID are going to play a very, very important factor in that. And I want to show you where engineering and science and computing, etc., will play a very important role. It could be a while before we see a vaccine. Research is going on to simulate, investigate and trial vaccines, and there's been some excellent progress made in that world. That certainly will be a huge impact on how we contain the virus. In the meantime, as we well know, the world of PPE is very familiar, protective equipment, protective clothing. And in this area here, and the whole aspect of social distance and sanitizing, there's many, many ground challenges. How we develop a mask, for instance, a mask that is actually comfortable to wear. There's the world of data. We do know a lot about who is affected, what age groups are affected quite strongly. We know the elderly suffer from the COVID virus more than the young. Males suffer a bit more than females. And particular disease groups, those cardiovascular disease groups, diabetes and hypertension in particular, all are affected by it. So with all that knowledge, how do we protect and how do we develop and diagnose, and how do we bring engineering and computing into those areas to make the world a better world? It is a pandemic. It's not been one of our biggest pandemics. I mean, HIV was much, much larger from the point of view of deaths. But certainly this pandemic, the way that it's taken the world over and how it's impacted on our daily lives and impacted on our economy, makes it a huge issue, and one probably of the greatest challenges many of us will ever face in our lifetime. And therefore calling on engineers and computing scientists to innovate and develop rapidly in the area is something I've been very proud of in the role that our university in the sciences and engineering and computing, and how they have jumped to the task and the challenge of coming up with innovation in these areas. So what could those areas be? Well, data has been extremely important. I think you're all familiar with all the broadsheets and models and simulations that you see probably every day on your screen. Some of those we've been involved in locally, and some of them are there to predict the use of PPE in our hospitals, you know, the effect of lockdown and how it affects the spread of the virus. Now we're really interested in the other side of it, the other side of the curve, and the effect of easing. If we overly ease, do we see the spikes coming back again? Do we see second waves materializing? So that data, how data is presented and how it's analyzed and which models are used, and the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning and all those topics are absolutely core to what we've been used to and dealing with. So turning our hands to those areas and helping key figures in Northern Ireland sit in task force from the university here has been of immense importance. So it was no surprise that some of us got invited onto National Task Force to help develop what would be the UK's first COVID antibody test. We're just about to release these out to the public in probably early September, and as we release them, we'll be very proud of our role in helping develop, validate, verify, test, and just now recently undertake a huge pandemic study into the user experience of actually using these pinprick, very low cost, self-managed devices in our home. What sort of goes with that world, and I know this complicates some people, is that we need to be able to read these tests, and that's where apps come in, and we've been very lucky to be involved in developing very key apps around the world, but two in particular have been very, very important. As part of a consortium that we're part of, the Rapid Test Consortium, there's been an app at the middle of that we've been very proud to validate. It just reads the color changes that occur as the antibody levels change in this test. Another app that you will all maybe now be aware of, the Stop COVID Northern Ireland app. Myself and a couple of colleagues again been privileged to be on the task force in Northern Ireland for taking that app forward, validating it, checking it, getting rid of false positives and false negatives that are in the area, and making sure it's fit for purpose in our community. That's going to be hugely beneficial. So just think of it, that data, that diagnostic test and that app, and maybe PPE and social distancing, And then you start to control a pandemic that at times feels that's getting out of control. And that's been our mentality. You don't do these things in isolation, you do them together. We've also been proud to be involved in looking at atomization, effectively the effect of very heavy breathing, loud talking, coughing, sneezing, and the aerosol production and large droplet production that you get from such activities. Within a closed environment, that can have a detrimental effect in the spread of the disease. So do visors make a difference? Do particular masks make a difference? We've been modelling and simulating that, and effectively also designing visors for local companies here and help regenerate some of the industry. So there's been a list of projects that you'll see in some of the slides behind us that give you some idea of the detail that's required, from early stage modelling and simulation to an understanding the virus, to looking at what global challenges and global publications and science is doing, and then working with industry here locally to get that adopted and taken forward. Our big successes really within that do include, as I say, the launch of what's known as the ABC-19 COVID app, the ABC-19 antibody test, a set of visors that have gone into companies like Vita Materials here locally, and then a new set of models that we've been able to produce, particularly ones now that show the effect of overly easing here in Northern Ireland at the minute. And this particular model is now receiving a lot of media attention as we speak. Now, the new world of health. What does it look like? What's going to change? Well, look, there's been some clues during the lockdown. If you were to try and get a hospital appointment, or if you were trying to work with a set of clinicians, you would notice that you probably were told not to go anywhere near a hospital. So how were you getting diagnosed, or how was that consultation taking place? For a long time, particularly in the UK and in Northern Ireland, we did not use e-consultation, and as we speak, those very concepts have been talked about, the virtual hospital. Been an idea that we teach students about every year. It's been an idea that's been played out in many scenarios as a high possibility. But the reality is, it now is something that has been put into practice in the COVID world. And within the COVID world, we're going to see that expand out, I think, over the next 5-10 years. I've already seen the healthcare system here change quite dramatically. Change in a way that I think it will be beneficial for both clinicians, beneficial for patients, and also lower cost, allowing us to create better centres of excellence within the healthcare system here in Northern Ireland. So I do think we will see those improvements. There is a bigger picture, and we will use things like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Internet of Things is where we collect data randomly from many, many different sources. For instance, the environment. We will know during COVID, mostly had good weather so far, but weather will have an effect on the spread of that illness. So temperature monitoring, pollution monitoring, and everything else that goes with that, humidity monitoring, and picking that up and looking at the effect that has in a pandemic has already been very, very strongly looked at via sensors that are spread throughout a community and spread throughout a city. So Internet of Things is really about gathering data from many, many different sources, using artificial intelligence to look at predictive trends that are happening and try and understand our world in a much better way with richer data sets. I think we'll see a lot more point of care monitoring. So what does that mean? That means that in the home we will have self-test kits. You will be using diagnostic kits in the home to test for not just diabetes that you currently do, but many other diseases. Heart failure would be one that would be very, very top of the list these days, but obviously pandemic diseases as well. And finally, another one that I think in a strange way is going to become extremely important, and that is smart PPE. You know, what can we do with PPE to both protect, but also be smart about what it does? Could it detect if it's a safe environment that you're in? Would it help you with that? Would it make it more comfortable to wear? Would the PPE change depending on how much air we actually need to take in, etc.? I just want to highlight that we see this in such an important way that the university and City Deal, as part of the Belfast City Council, is investing 40 million in a new centre for digital healthcare technology. Now, that centre to be built up as part of our new Greater Belfast development is absolutely key to our strategy in health technologies. We're going to see things like living labs, community living labs. We're going to be involved in developing residential homes quite close to such areas to look at how we're going to live in the future, smart homes effectively as it's known, as well as continue with our diagnostic kits, our virtual hospital concepts, etc. That's going to be key to the centre. As part of that, the Harbour Commission are also looking at developing a medtech centre, a medtech innovation village beside that facility to encourage companies and future employment to come to the area. So the grand challenges, to sort of finish off, I was involved in a grand challenge about 4 years ago. Some of you in the audience might have heard of a tricorder before as part of Star Trek. The tricorder was there, a device in the palm of your hand that could diagnose any disease. So we were challenged to do the same thing. The COVID world and many of the challenges of the COVID world put me back in the exact same place as I was during that competition, with a competition to develop a grand challenge of something very, very similar at pace, bringing many organisations together to try and come up with a solution that had to have high quality user experience, which was the rules of that particular competition is exactly the rules of COVID. The user has to use it, and also it has to be accurate. And you will see in the media a lot about accuracy associated with diagnostics, for instance. Vaccines the exact same. It has to be quality, accurate and well tested. So the grand challenges that I talk about are very much in that world of diagnostics, the grand challenge of PPE that I've highlighted before, the grand challenge of a rapid vaccine development system, the grand challenge of virtual hospitalization, automation. Automation is maybe a very, very big word that describes so many things, but the world of automation, meaning that you use artificial intelligence and use algorithms and smart systems to make those decisions for you, is going to become a very important part of the health service, where again, all that information eventually makes a decision to help with quality, patient flow systems, etc. And I think it's very important to mention that improved environments will be very much part of that health picture. The clean home, the smart home, the cleaner environment, the clean technology, etc. that's used and goes with that is all part of that big new COVID world that we have to get right in the future. So why not join engineering, computing, sciences, etc. at Ulster and help change the world that very much needs skills of that nature, particularly in the STEM area, to take us into a brighter and better future. Thank you.